Do you know how much money you'll be living on when you retire? Well, there have been lots of headlines recently telling us we are heading for a pensions crisis.
Well, a new study, though, reckons they've got nothing to worry about. The report argues that the gloom warnings have been exaggerated and there is, in fact, no crisis.
The problem has always been longer, and that's led to dire warnings and sombre headlines, such as saving gaps and black holes.
There's talk among business leaders and politicians that we now need to work until we're 70 to have enough money to retire on.
But today's study concludes no need to panic. The report from Tomorrow's Company, an independent business-led think tank, argues that it's all wrong. It says there's no ageing crisis and claims we can afford to grow older without being hard up by the time we get to retirement age. Well, is that breezy assessment shared by our next guest? He's Jonathan Davis. He's the chairman of the Institute of Financial Planning in London.
I am here. Well, it's very inconsiderate of people living longer than they ought to, isn't it?
Can we afford to grow old?
UP, I'm sure you're okay. I'm sure they'll say their pensions are okay. If you're wealthy, similarly, I think it's fair to say that you're putting enough into your pension, or you're having enough by your company put in. If you're not so wealthy, for example, the Institute of Fiscal Studies tells us that the average earnings in the UK is £22,000 a year, and 50% of earners earn no more than £16,000 a year. You mentioned the cost of housing. How can people possibly be saving sufficiently for secure and comfortable retirement?
This report says that it's rising productivity more, there'll be more wealth, or isn't necessarily or necessary to such degree because we're all away.
Well, wouldn't it be great if things continue as they have done the last... well, of course, extrapolation is easy and it's nice when it works for you, but the reality is you can extrapolate anything into the future and it often doesn't work. Let's go back to as an example. I could extrapolate that my house is going to grow 20% a year for the next 40 years. It'll then be the value of the economy of the American country. It isn't going to happen.
Yeah, so... does that you do not put your money, because there is this debate from people, do I put my money into bricks and mortar and forget about saving in a traditional pension fund, or do you put them in the traditional pension funds?
Well, of course, hundreds of thousands of people have put money into bricks and mortar in the last few years, and that is essentially what has fueled the massive bubble that we have. I happen to believe that pensions are, of course, very tax efficient. The problem with pensions is not the fact that it's a pension, it's what's inside that matters. Yes. It's the investment itself that matters. Investments can be over the long run. It's just a question of finding the right things. What
if you are completely relying, still been warned not to, what if you are still relying on a state pension?
The credit guarantee for a married couple, for a retiree, is I think £167 a week, £8,000 a year. Is that really sufficient to provide a secure and comfortable retirement?
But that will go in line with inflation, and
it'll still be the equivalent of £10 a year. That's assuming that the then government has that level.
Will it?
Well, that again is assuming the economy has the money, and we can't assume these things 30 years out.
Well, what can we assume? Do we assume that we're going to have to work longer then? We're certainly going to assume that we're going to have to work until we're 70 years of age.
I think if we go back a stage, I think people individually have to take personal responsibility for their own retirement. Mm-hmm. It'd be all very well to say, well, someone's going to sort it out. Well, the government just doesn't make money out of thin air. What it has, it comes from your and my taxes. So people, as you know, in this country we have enormous debt. So people have to take responsibility, they have to reduce their debt, they have to save in whatever it is, or they work longer.
And if you are on the average British wage of £22,500, then I assume that you should be afraid, very afraid.
In a manner of speaking.
Okay, gloomy prospects. Jonathan Davis, thank you very much indeed. The report author, Lorna, we've got him coming in, haven't we?
I wanted to when I was 30. Never mind.
Don't wish, you may get.